Well, welcome guys. I'm glad you made it here to hear a little bit about our origin story and find out who we are. So, I'm Brandon Nimz. I run the Gamers Guild in Hayes at 200 East 8th Street. And you'd asked about our origin initially and where we came from. So, I'll get a little bit of side tangent and talk about the origin of Unite and Aikido of Northwest Kansas because those both play into why the Gamers Guild exists. So I graduated Fort Hays back in '09 and was looking at either going to KU Med, I had done all the necessary pre-med stuff, or I was looking at going to Dallas Theological Seminary because I have an interest in languages and Old Testament scripture, New Testament scripture, original context. So that was something I was looking at doing as well. I was probably going to DTS, but I hadn't decided. But I kind of prayed and reflected on it and felt like I was supposed to stick around to lead a local ministry. So it didn't exist yet, but that's what I felt like I was supposed to do. So I stuck around and did that while working full-time at the hospital. But it ended up not serving the need that was there because I was full-time working when people wanted to talk. Because at the time we mostly worked with college kids and people would want to talk at IHOP until like 3 or 4 in the morning, which was fine. And I enjoyed doing that tremendously. But I had to be up and alert at the hospital at 7 a.m. It made it kind of challenging. So after a lot of prayer and reflection, I ended up finding out I didn't really quite believe what I thought I did, like I intellectually did, but I didn't trust it because I knew the answer was seek first my kingdom and I'll provide your basic needs. At least that's a scripture that would speak to that. But I didn't trust it enough to quit my job and jump out. So for about 3 months, I was praying about it a bunch, asking God to help me be like a kid on a diving board, right? Like I can't jump off, I can't jump off, so help me let go. And so eventually he did, and I did, and I resigned my full-time job, stepped out into ministry work with no guaranteed source of income. I had a math degree was one of my degrees, so I knew that if I sold my car, computer, everything I owned, I would make it maybe a year, and then I'd be out of money. So can't learn to trust, which is what I was praying for, until you're in a position where you have to trust, and it's uncomfortable. Just like you can't grow muscles until you work them out to exhaustion. You can't gain patience until you have your patience strained. Same premise. So basically, every month it always came together. Then I had opportunities. I moved out of my house, my apartment at the time, into a 3-bedroom house with 4 dudes. So I got a chunk of the living room. But it dropped my rent and bills down to $110 total per month. This was a ghetto house. I'm not going to even go into all the details. But I also biked everywhere, ate lots of ramen and beans, and I basically made it on about $200 a month, which was way lower than I thought would be possible. Back then, didn't have a smartphone, and so anyway, the math all worked. But each time when it was time to pay the rent or the bills at the end, it would come together, and I feel like, why does this relate to the Gamers Guild? It will, don't worry. At the end of the month, it always came together. Either I'd have an odd job that didn't conflict with ministry, because I considered that providence, or like I sold my class ring, melted it down, or my keyboard. One time there was a couple who was giving money to one church, but they were between churches, so they sent it our way to the ministry, because we had incorporated into a nonprofit that could receive donations. We just didn't have donors. And every month it would always work. And it was always freaky, because it'd be like 3 days, my bills are due, and then 2 days, and then suddenly something would come about. So anyway, it was on that level of income that I was still running Aikido of Northwest Kansas. But at the time, it was just the Fort Hays Aikido Club. So I was teaching 6 hours a week on campus, Aikido, Japanese self-defensive martial art. And they said, well, you have too many non-students, so you can either kick them out of the club or shut the club down. And those were good options. So I asked my instructor about if he'd be okay with me doing a dojo, because I was underranked to do that. He gave me permission. He lives up in Chicago, and I have to go up there a couple times a year to train. He comes down here. And he felt I was competent and safe enough, and I had my certs up for it. So I looked at renting a place, but on my $200 a month income, it was about $500 a month to rent a space. So that was very intimidating, and that was before. Now it's a lot more expensive, but back then it was $500 a month. And so no guild side, just dojo side. And I was freaking out about it, but I decided, let's give it a try. We had enough students, and it did float barely. I was hoping it would maybe make money, but it ended up kind of breaking even. But it served the purpose really well. It served the community. We did lots of demos for Boy Scouts, youth groups, other stuff. Talked about how to de-escalate conflict, how to handle our own stuff. Like one of our main premises in Aikido is I can't control the guy attacking me, gal attacking me, but I can't control me. So I can move, I can stay calm, I can get offline. If I get hit, I don't have to freak out. I control me. I can't control how I feel, I can't control what they're trying to do, but I am in control of myself. And that's bigger than we realize, because like a lot of violent situations of like someone's got your hand, someone's got your hand, you pull in, trying to fight it. Why are you doing that? They only have your hand. Your arm's free, your body's free, you can move everything. So it's a really important concept that actually I'm free. They've only got 10% of me, because otherwise they've got 100% of me. So anyway, we were able to share those types of lessons with kids, with some people dealing with violence, with people dealing with hard stuff. And remembering it's okay to feel how they feel, but they still control what they do. You know, those are valuable types of lessons. So ended up breaking even, but we did that. And next door was this vacant space. It was really ghetto. This is where the guild comes in. It had these poles through it to hold up the roof. It had, it leaks when it rains, still does. Had wiring trouble, power grid trouble, and it hadn't been rented for over a decade. And I was always a little concerned it would get rented anyway, and it would make the dojo weird. But the main player there is game night, which is the true origin of the Gamers Guild. So back before all this, when I was a college student, I had game night in my room. We had 4 or 5 good friends. We played boarding card games. I'd expanded to the north lobby. They started calling it Brandon's Game Night. It had like 20, 30 people. And this is old Aggie, not the current one. But then it expanded to main lobby, and then we had about 60, 70 people. And it was a real good time. And we had a little bit of some of the card games, the trading card games like Magic and stuff. But it was mostly boarding card games and just good old-fashioned fun. So that is what we had going, but they started renovating. So when I graduated, I couldn't use the dorms anymore. I didn't live there. So I used the Protestant Campus Center, but that became the United Methodist Student Center. And they renovated. And when they renovated, like, our attendance went to nothing because we would have to bounce around to other places that would host us. And so then I went back again, and then they renovated again, and I was like, dang, it's just killing attendance. People want to play and hang out, but they don't like having to like figure out where it's at every week. So I went ahead and rented that space next door for the Gamers Guild. And again, part of why I mentioned the numbers and the income and stuff earlier is where I was at, it was a pretty scary thing to do because I was floating on $200 a month for my personal. The dojo was barely breaking even at $500 a month. And so for the Gamers Guild, our first product order, we initially just rented it at a loss of about $200 a month. He was very generous because he knew, I mean, with code and stuff, I don't even know if he could have rented it otherwise. But we just had card tables and chairs, and we were just playing boarding card games. We had a retail sales license, and we could sell stuff. So about $500 worth of Magic stuff, and that was terrifying. But we did, and we managed to sell it, and it managed to make enough to pay rent. We continued to do that, and stuff grew as we went. Within a few years, if you look at our Facebook page, there are some pictures where you'll see like 70, 80 people coming. Because for Magic the Gathering in particular, the closest stores were in Denver, Salina, and then south you had to go to Texas, I think, and north there was one place in Nebraska, but it's like a 5-hour drive. So we had people coming up from Garden and Dodge, we had people coming from all over the state. It was the first Magic store in the area that could do pre-releases, so we had huge attendance. So it was growing and doing well, but for the first 7 years, it was just me running the dojo side and the guild side. And it was a community event center more than anything else. It was a place people could come and play boarding card games, a place people could hang out. And then we would do sales when I wasn't teaching Aikido. And we had signs up that said that. It would be like register hours, regular hours. And we were open way more hours than we were register hours. But while this was good for people treating it as a home, it was confusing to community members. Because even though we advertised everywhere, we're a safe hangout place, people just assume you're a retail store. And if I walked into McDonald's and I want to buy a hamburger and it says sales hours 7 to 9 p.m. and it's 5 p.m., I'm like, I can't buy a hamburger? No, but you can sit in our lobby. What the heck, man? You know, it'd be kind of confusing, upsetting. And we got that reaction sometimes. So we were trying to be very clear in our advertising, but people don't always read signs. And I couldn't make those hours work on my own because I was teaching at the dojo, running the ministry, and running the Gamers Guild. So I was working 60 to 80 hours a week sometimes. And on a bad week, I'd be working about 90 hours. So, and there still wasn't space unless I quit something else to run that. But I digress. I forgot. Someone in the audience, those of you online don't know this, but they'd asked about the commodities and stuff. So 2010, well actually, sorry. We formally opened the dojo, our charters earlier than that. We formally opened the dojo in 2012. The Gamers Guild 2013. The Free Store opened 2014. That was an extension of the ministry wing. The idea is it's like a thrift store, but everything is free. People can donate, take, or trade, and it lets the community help itself out. The reason it matters, because there are already good places like the Community Assistance Center, is one, we don't require any documentation or proof of income. So if you are, at the time, there were a lot of illegal immigrant families who are not comfortable using other places because they needed documented sources of existence, which they didn't have. We also had some homeless folks who are not getting service elsewhere because they don't have an address to prove residence, being homeless. So we kind of served some people that fell through the gaps. Also people who popped straight out of jail and didn't have a residence yet. But also old farmers who are too proud to take a handout, but they can drop something weird off and pick some food up. And that was kind of the niche that we served. About that time, the Community Assistance Center stopped doing commodities, so we picked that up. So for those who asked, commodities is a federal program. We do the regional distribution, so we have a church who's donated a parking lot. Heartland Building donates a forklift, and we skid load off like 16 pallets of food. And then we have volunteer workers who load those into about 33 trucks and vans. Those go down to food pantries in like the surrounding counties, and then also locally. And then we give out locally from the Gamers Guild as well. Hello, good to have extra company joining us.
Hello.
So that's commodities, that's kind of the free store way. But the Gamers Guild went ahead and grew further when I and my wife decided to have kiddos, and we had a kid because my hours now have to be less, and I knew that. So we hired our first part-time employee, Jason, and that was a few years back, and it was really a make or break it, because at this point, it either had to float, or it couldn't, and if it couldn't, because I wanted to be a good dad, then that meant that things might have to change. But it ended up making it, didn't make it amazingly, but it did survive, and we were able to pay him reasonably. So we continued to expand that, because now we had those register hours. It's that dissonance that I mentioned, where people walk in and are like, I want to buy something. Well, we're in event hours, but we're not in register hours for another 3 hours. It's not there anymore. You could come in and buy stuff. Actually, at first it was. There were still register hours and open hours, but eventually we had another part-time employee, Steven. We were able to go ahead and flesh it all out to where we were just open when we were open. Now, back then, and even still today, we do still have hours available that are beyond our register hours. But we just don't have those advertised. So if you come in and it's 10 o'clock and we close up shop, you may have to go out. If I don't have a volunteer who can watch the place, then yep, everyone leaves. But we have a volunteer program. I think we have 12 trained volunteers right now who've gone through some training for just like what happens in a medical emergency, what happens in weather, what happens in violence, what happens if you see theft. And they're trained to watch the place. And so once everything's locked, people can hang out there and play board and card games because it is primarily a community center. So I have shown up like the next morning at 7 in the morning to find people playing card games or Axis and Allies or Risk at 7 or 8 a.m. the next day, especially college students around the finals time. And that's totally fine. That's the heart of the place. So been monologuing and checking my time. So within that, I think I should probably kind of shift gears. That's kind of our origin. But I haven't really kind of explained all of what the guild offers or does. So the Gamers Guild is a safe hangout place. We have people who are homeless who come in, like George. Some of you may have met him, big beard, likes to tell everybody about Jesus, likes to collect and recycle cans, does art with the iron towards the university, awesome guy. It's a place he can be safe from the elements longer than he can in other places. A lot of times he's actually here at the library, or used to be, I don't know if he still is. But when it gets later, he'll come hang at our place. We have actually some books in the free store. He'll pull off a book and read and hang out. Eventually, yeah, we do close, or the volunteers head home, and then he heads out as well. And usually it's right before we close that he heads out. But you don't have to buy anything. You don't have to be contributing anything. You just come in, hang, and be. Use the Wi-Fi, use the water, use the restrooms. Great. We do have free board and card games. All of these are in our free store shelves except Hand-to-Hand Combat, my personal Magic the Gathering deck. And actually, I think we do have a Twilight Imperium back then, but I didn't have time to find it before I came here. But the rest of these are all in the back room. You can pull them out and play them for free. If the employees have time or volunteers have time, they can teach how to play any of them for free. They're loosely alphabetized. They should be strictly alphabetized, but people don't always put them back in the right order. But it's A through Z, and a lot of those are games that, like Caverna. Caverna's, I think, a $120 MSRP game. But we have 2 copies back there, the demo copies. You can pull it out, play it, see if you like it before you buy it. And you don't have to buy it from us either. It's free to play. We also have free Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic cards, so people can come out and learn to play any of those games. We're starting, right now they're not free, but we might eventually get some free One Piece cards as well. I know there's some One Piece players out there in the audience. You can't see them, but I can. So, yeah, we want people to be able to play games without a price point. Now that said, I do now have 3 part-time and 1 full-time employee, and wages have gone up, and everything's gone up between inflation and everything else. So we do also sell board card games, and that helps us exist. Sometimes that works well. 2 years ago, I think I made about $15,000, which when I did the math on it, I paid myself $7 an hour. Last year, I think we lost about $3,000. So if you look at the math on that, I earned like negative $3 an hour. But you know, it at the end of the day, it comes close to breaking even or floating, and all the employees get paid. They're $12.50 part-time and $14 for the full-time. So our wages are reasonably fair as we can be. Ideally, if like it goes up a little bit, everyone will earn more, which is great too. But again, our primary goal is not the retail side; it's the community side. So we have people who play board games, but that's actually weirdly enough less common. We have organized people who come in and play miniature games. So we'll talk about some of these games. These are actually miniatures. If you're used to do like building the models, I used to do that when I was a kid, like build your B-29 bomber or whatever else. These are all on sprues. You crack them off, glue them together, custom build them, and then you can paint them. This is an example of like a painted model. But unlike the old days where you just had your cool model hanging out on the wall, you can actually play games. This one's called Warhammer 40K. It's a futuristic sci-fi thing. But it's fun to watch people play it because each of these units can be played with a rule set. So like this turret is magnetic and it sticks on the top there. And it shoots so far. And you'll see the Warhammer players like roll out a tape measure and be like, all right, I've got this many inches, and then they have so many inches of movement. And they have to have line of sight. And if so, they fire and they roll dice to see how much hits. So you can actually play military games with your military units. Or fantasy games with your fantasy units. So those are called miniature games. We mostly just carry the Warhammer line, but we do have Star Wars minis and Star Wars Armada as well. And we carry some other miniature models for Dungeons and Dragons, and there are other games besides that are miniature games. So it's kind of one category that you can come in and learn anytime. The store actually paid a local artist to paint 2 full sets of armies. So if you wanted to come play, we have complete armies that you can play for free, just using the rule book with someone to teach you. So that's one type of game we carry. Speaking of artists, we like to deal with local artists. So these dice are handmade by an artist over in Ellis. Gamer Inc. is her channel and stuff. If you're following online, I want to check her out. But we carry some stuff from her husband who does woodworking. We actually have some other products as well. If you're into local art that relates to gaming, we do want it to relate to gaming, like a cool Greek nude sculpture. I don't think I'm going to have much luck moving in the guild. But if it's something that relates to games, we're happy to let you try to sell your craft and build up your own business because we like to be able to support local and let local artists shine. So we do carry industrial dice, but we also carry several local lines. Trading card games. I think Pokemon, I'm sorry. Instead of One Piece, I thought there might be an older crowd here. I also have Magic the Gathering decks, and we do carry Yu-Gi-Oh! We do carry One Piece. We carry a couple other games too, spatterings of them. The trading card games are another major thing we have at the Guild. A lot of fun. We have a lot of regular tournaments with those. So Warhammer, it's like a couple times a month. But between all the trading card game tournaments, I think it's probably in excess of 30 between all of them for One Piece, Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic, Pokemon. We do a lot of events at the Guild. Some of those are free, some of those are not. If they're not free, they have some sort of prize that's on the line that's worth money. Or you're actually using the product to play, so you're buying the product so you can play. But there are also quite a few free events, and we have something called the Pay It Forward account, again in line with the ministry and our ethos. If you want, anytime you want, you can put money into the Pay It Forward account. Just talk to an employee at the register. And if you want, anytime you want to play and don't have money, you can say, hey, is there a balance in the Pay It Forward account? Last I checked, there was about 140 in it. And so you could use that to play a tournament even if you don't have money. So it's totally fine, and in fact, appreciated. If you're like, I really want to play a game, but that's too expensive, come try it. Like, I also contribute to that account sometimes. And I can tell you from my standpoint, I did that so you could try the game. If you don't like it, I'm not offended. But you didn't have to drop any money then. You found out if you liked it or didn't like it. So that account also exists, and trading card games are very popular. I know no one's heard of Dungeons and Dragons, especially over a pandemic, but there are also role-playing games that we carry, including Pathfinder and some other variants. It's primarily Dungeons and Dragons, but we do have other games like that. I think we have gosh, I don't even know, like 12 different groups that come in and play at home or play on site, including the Hayes High D&D Club and several local groups that are open to players. We also have one guy who does free one-shot campaigns that you can join. You just have to sign up at the guild so that we don't have too many slots. But that's free. But if you wanted to play a game where you get to act out a character, you can. Those games have rule sets, and they can have menus or not, but you basically get to be the characters. So you do want to kind of chat with the group and fill it out. Some like the acting and social component. So they'll use their accents and they'll play their games, yeah. They're going to like swing their big axe and they're going to have like a little bit of a brogue. And they'll be more into the acting. That's a good time. Others are going to be more into the strategy, and they want to know that like when I swing my axe, it does this much damage, and if you do that at the same time, it magnifies the damage, and maybe we can take on a super crazy monster. That's also a valid way to play. Every group's usually a mix, but you'll tend to have fun if you match your mix. If you're into tactics and everyone's just doing funny accents, you'll not have much fun, and vice versa. But if you find the right balance, it's a real good time. By the way, this is I was told a 30-minute monologue, so if you get bored, get a drink, come back. If you're online, I'm not sure that you can do that if you're here. But we do have other games, so I'm going to continue. We have Hand-to-Hand Wombat. Why did I pick this one? Well, this kind of represents the party games. It also represents what's called a hidden role game. So for hidden role games, somebody has a role that you don't know. Dead of Winter is the same. We'll talk about that in a bit. But hidden role board games, in this case, everybody has their eyes closed and they're building towers. Except for the person who says that the rule is to wreck everybody's towers. But everyone's got their eyes closed, and they're trying to wreck the towers. And after a certain amount of time, everyone gets to vote who they think the wrecker is. But you might be voting off the people who are helping you build the towers. At the end of the day, if the good guys get all the towers built, they win. If they don't, and there's only the wrecker left, they lose. But you don't know who's who. You have to have the identity. You also have to have some dexterity and fun as you build towers. And you might be misleading somebody, be like, I felt his hand touch me. You're the evil person. Who knows? That's the thing with social games. So I'll jump into Dead of Winter. Dead of Winter is kind of a survival zombie apocalypse game. Same thing. It's a conditional hidden rule. So everyone has a hidden goal to win, but they're not all oppositional. Everyone can win the game. Usually you have to survive the zombie apocalypse and like hoard food or hoard power or secretly prep a plane to escape. But there are some hidden rules, like Cult Leader. It's a bit more of an adult game, where your job is to actually drop the morale, but make yourself super high and cool charismatically, and let everyone else get eaten by the zombies. So there are different hidden roles you may have where you are actually trying to shoot everyone else in the foot, metaphorically or literally. Not truly literally, but your character maybe literally. So those conditional hidden role games can be challenging because people might be suspicious of each other, but actually you're all on the same side. Statistically, most of the time you are in that game. There are tile building games. These are kind of unique if you've never done them. You actually like lay down a tile that makes a picture. It has to match with the other tiles to make a logical picture. Like you can't have a road bursting out of a river. It doesn't work. But road pieces connect to roads, planes to planes. And as you place your characters, you get different points. And that can block other players, or join other players, or even take their points, depending on how you lay them down. I know online you probably can't see these cards, but I really like Dixit. I brought it because if you've ever played Apples to Apples, it's like that, but it has some fun additional elements. Each card has a lot of kind of trippy art on it, and each of you has a hand of like 6 pieces of trippy art. One of you, it's your job, you look at what the actual card is, kind of like the green apple card on Apples to Apples. So maybe this is the art that you're going to play. It's like a little marionette dude. You have to pick a phrase. And maybe your phrase, maybe you have certain thoughts about the political government. And whoever president is, you feel like the president is a puppet of corporations, whatever. And you think somebody else will get that, but not everyone else will get that. So you can be like, the presidency. Throw that card down. Well, everyone else is going to look at their hand of pictures, like, who can I get to think presidency? Maybe that old watch. Maybe the king turning into stone. Maybe the masks, because they're fake at times. Maybe, whatever. Only you know your card, and everyone else knows theirs. Then you flip them over. The job in Dixit is to get somebody to vote for yours, but not everybody. If everybody votes for yours, you don't get any points. If nobody votes for yours, you don't get any points. But if at least one person does, you get several points. On the flip side, everyone else wants someone to vote for theirs because they get points for everyone they tripped. So you all have a vested interest in guessing the real card, but also in getting people to vote for yours. At the end of the day, whoever gets the most points wins. But it's a lot more flexible and inventive version of kind of like apples to apples strategy. So I like it. Like apples to apples or Cards Against Humanity or other such games, it does depend on the crew you're playing with. If you are all very witty, it tends to be a lot more fun. Or if you're all very literal, it tends to be a lot more fun. It can be a little unfortunate if you have certain mixes where you're making really great jokes and nobody's getting it. If you're like me, you don't care. You just laugh anyway because you cracked yourself up. But that's another style of game. What else is up here on this desk? Are there more than what I have here yet? The Gamer Skill has like a few thousand titles, so I can't really bring something that represents all of them. But I wanted to give you an idea of where games have evolved, especially some of you in the audience were of the older generation in Hayes. It appears that our audience here, by the way, does not meet that criteria. But if they did, I wanted them to see kind of how games have evolved. So for you guys, I apologize if this is boring. But for those who haven't played it, like Settlers of Catan is a pretty classic game. If you're elderly, you might realize it's like a combination of Monopoly and Risk, because you end up having placements that matter on the board, kind of like Risk does in terms of the resources you gather. And Risk, you're just getting troops, but here you're getting resources to build, kind of like Monopoly. And then you're building up your hand and expanding to other parts of the board and trying to get the most points by the end, much like Monopoly. So this is a blend game. What do I mean by blend game? Well, that's why I picked Clank as well. So they have what's called deck building games. I was going to bring Dominion, but I couldn't fit it in my box. For those, you're adding cards to a deck as you play, and each round you add extra cards that give you new powers. And eventually, you try to get the most points, because some cards are worth points, but they clunk up your hand. So you want the most points at the end when all the points are gone. Clank did that, but they also added an actual physical dungeon. So you are running your characters down into a dungeon to pick up treasure from an angry dragon. And your deck lets your character move, fight, buy things, or do other cool abilities. And as you add to the deck, your character gets more and more flexible. But each hand, you can only play your hand and only do as much as your deck lets you do. Others are doing the same thing, and in the process of stealing the treasure, they make the dragon angry, and it starts attacking you all. And if you get knocked out underground, you don't get any points. So you have to figure out how much deck building to do to get your character super flexible and get points. But also, you don't want to go too far into that because you need to exit out or you don't get anything. So it's actually one of my favorite deck building strategy style games. I am not, unless you wanted to be here way longer than I have, going to explain the details of Twilight Imperium. But I did figure that I would explain we have deck games like Twilight Imperium. So on complexity, you can be jumping up to, if you want to come check out the board later, you can. But this is a literal galaxy with multiple planets that produce tons of different resources. Each race has its own tech tree and tech card. You can advance each race and each tech individually. You can trade with others. You can win through trade. You can win through conquest. You can win through expansion. And the average runtime for this game is like, Axis and Allies is maybe 6 hours. This is often 6 to 12. Is it a fun game? It's actually a blast in my opinion. It's kind of like Catan. If you've never played Catan, the first time you play it, if you've not had this experience, so this won't make sense, but if you have, the first time I played Catan, I was like, wow, what? But after playing it just even a few times, it's like, oh, this is a really easy game. Twilight's kind of like that, but a little bit more extreme. The first time you played, if you're with an experienced crew, you're still like, I think I just, has it been 7 hours? Did I eat? What happened? The second game, it's a kind of easy game, and then the third time you're like, okay, this is fun. Let's do this again. That may be a bit of a mistake, but that is how that game runs. Likewise, I bought a super easy game because we have these types of things too. And I thought, again, we'd have an older generation present. So, set is easy, and it's frustratingly easy because it's also really hard. So for set, like this is a card that is a wavy purple, but it's solid. This is a green oval solid, and this is a red triangle solid. That would be a set because you're going to lay down 9 cards in a grid. Actually, I think it might be 12. But you have 12 cards down, and any time that they are all the same in all characteristics, all different in all characteristics, or match that alternation, then it's a set. So in this case, they're all filled in, they're all different shapes, and they're all different colors, so it would be a set. If this was purple, it would not be a set because they share a partial attribute, but not a full. If this was purple and this was purple, it would be a set again. Each of those attributes has to be all the same or all different. So at first, it's a little eye-catching to try to figure out what on earth is going on. But like there's a simple one here on the top of the box that you can't see. You have a hollow oval, 2 hollow ovals, 3 hollow ovals. Numbered, different, color, same, texture, same. That's a set. Once you get used to it, it's fun, but it's so simple that actually a lot of times there'll be sets sitting there and you don't notice it. And whoever calls the set first gets it. So they're like, set, they get their set. When you're playing with someone who does it all the time, it's real frustrating because they get done fast. So, again, are these all the types of games we have in the Gamers Guild? No, we have a lot more. But this represents some of the different genres of games that are easily accessible to play there. And doesn't really leave too much out. Again, some of them have tremendous branches. If there had been more time or curiosity, for instance, Pokemon is actually a rather fun game to play. So is Magic the Gathering. And so is One Piece. Actually, that one's taking off like a storm right now. Everybody's digging One Piece. But though they have similar mechanics, some of them are actually very tremendous. Some, like Magic, use like mana and cards. Whereas Pokemon has a similar concept in that it has energy you have to attach to your Pokemon. But some of them have totally different stuff, like the Dawn present in One Piece, that actually prevent what's called mana screw, that make a lot of these games not fun. So we could break that down, but that could be its own hour-long series, and I don't think this is the particular audience for it. So, Gamers Guild. Origin story, shared. Started as a game night. Still exists primarily as a game night. What's that mean? If you play a game that's not up here, and you're really into it, talk to me. We did not carry any Warhammer whatsoever until a local said, I really want to carry this. They used to have it at a place called Gulliver's that existed a long time ago, and no one has it, no one plays it. I was sketched at first because they require us to carry a lot of product to carry Warhammer, but it's taken off, and now there are probably a good 18, 20 people regionally who play and come to the guild to play. Some of those things start and die. Digimon, they're like, let's play it, let's play it. I bought it, existed for a while, and the tournaments petered, and then it died. And a lot of them take forever, like Yu-Gi-Oh! For years, we would have like this set of players, they'd be different players. One of them was even a frat, it really cracked me up. One of the frats, their main thing was playing Yu-Gi-Oh! But they would only come in when they came in. And I was like, no, I swear guys, they're like 40 local players. But they just never stacked up at the same time. And then one year, somehow the cross groups all came at the same day, and they're like, whoa, there are other people who play, and this is more fun. And then we started doing one tournament every 2 weeks. Sorry, once a month, then one every 2, then once a week. And now, I mean, generally speaking, Yu-Gi-Oh! Occasionally fires small with like 6 players, but usually there's 18, give or take, who play. So if you have a game and you're really into it, bring it to us. We can try it. It may not fly, it may fly, but that's how new communities grow. We want to be a central hub that everyone can count it as their home, away from home. You don't have to buy anything or play anything. Come hang out like George, chat with folks, hop on the Wi-Fi, cool. Or come out, get involved, try a new thing, try Dungeons and Dragons, get the weird accent on, find out that's too much for you, and play something else. Whatever. But it's a free place for you to find and create community. And we hope you do, because without you, there is no community and there's no Gamers Guild. I did not do it to make money, I still don't. I wanted to float and support our employees, but that's about it. If you want to make a lot of money, this isn't the type of enterprise you should be doing, because Amazon exists. But if you want to help community grow and see really neat results and have fun, it's a good endeavor. I would never undo it, and I'm glad that we have. So last little side story as I wrap up, because this is about my time. I will tell you one other truth about the Guild. So I mentioned that I started out doing ministry work, and I still do. But when I started doing some of that ministry work, I see one of the kids put this back all funny. I'll have to finish that later. But I started doing the ministry work, and the Guild was a potential. I was like, I will not. About a year before, I said, I call it God's humor / Murphy's Law. I said, I will not open a boarded card game store. I did not quit a much better paying job at Hayes Med to go do this ministry work, only to get consumed with trading a Pokemon for a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card that I don't care about either one of these things. So no, I will not open a boarded card game store. And then a year later, the Guild came into existence. So again, that is still not our primary purpose. Actually, our commons and uncommons, I forgot to mention this, are free, up to 100, actually up to 500 per person per day now. And people can donate, take, or trade. So you can build a deck for free at the Guild. But we do indeed trade, sell, and buy all those cards as well. So, any questions from the audience before I wrap up and we do our exciting raffle? I know it's raffle, just if you're on the online side and are curious. I tend to use sarcastic humor, so I know that doesn't always translate through on the web. I'm staring at you, Red Dot. That's the camera looking at me. But anyway, it's been an honor to present. I'm glad you guys asked us out. If you have questions or want us to demo games, let us know. I guess I will say in closing, we're trying to do more stuff that's across that'll both benefit the community and be games. So like we are going to be doing a Settlers of Catan tournament December 17th, 2 p.m. I'm going to be going out and soliciting a bunch of businesses shortly because it is a competitive Catan tournament. So if you win, you go up a table. If you get the top 2 positions on your 4-person table. If you lose, you go down a table. It's only 2 rounds, so at the end there may be a bunch of people who are tied. It goes to victory points as a tiebreaker. And if they want, they can play an optional 3rd round, but that will not affect prizes. So what we're doing for that tournament is we're getting local businesses to donate prizes. So everyone's going to get some prizes. There is an entry fee. It's a minimum $25, but it's whatever you want. And all the proceeds, 100%, we don't take a cut, go to the Transient Aid Fund. So that's going to be the second mile fund for First Call for Help. So if you are having trouble paying your bills, having trouble with electric, or transient and stranded in Hayes and need a bus ticket to a homeless shelter, that's where all that money goes. So it'll be a combination of some of the ministry endeavors we do, because all the money's going there. And you can pay less than 25, or you can pay $25, I guess. You can pay as much as you want. You want to donate $3,000? Cool, go you. But we're going to try to make sure the prizes exceed that. So we'll see. Depends on who all businesses sponsor. If worst case scenario, the guild will sponsor a bunch, and we'll eat it, and then maybe we won't do it again quite like this. But I'm pretty hopeful. Last time we did something like this was pre-COVID, but we had some pretty good participation from some tasty, tasty restaurants, and we had a lot of others pitch in to where like the winners got like $80, $90 worth of stuff for their $25 entry. So anyway, we're always open to new things like that too. So if you want to do a fundraiser, if you want to do a graduation, we've done those. If you want to do a private party, we've done those where they play games. Just let us know. We're open to ideas, but especially if it'll help serve the community, be fun, and let more people get together who have very different views sometimes, but are willing to meet over games and actually realize that other people are human and cool. That's our MO. Reach out to us. Thank you. Thank you guys for listening over there too.
That was awesome. I never